Back inside the dream realm, black mist quickly wraps around Lu Sheng, and with a light push of his hand, energy explodes outward. It takes a ridiculous amount of time, but he finally grinds through it. Our boy notes that a 13th level is no joke at all. He recalls how he'd challenged this opponent more than a dozen times before, only to get utterly destroyed every single round. Meanwhile, after finally breaking through 11th level, he finally pulls off a win. The rewards afterward barely matter. What really hits is the overwhelming sense of achievement. As he feels the lightning crackling in his palm, he remarks on how strange it looks. Countless lightning-shaped lines merge across his hand, forming something like a terrifying thunderstorm trapped beneath the skin. He then reflects that if 11th level and 12th are about learning and controlling rule-based power, then 13th level clearly steps into the laws of the universe. Law-level power, our boy suggests, is basically the secondary extension of the universe's origin power, and reaching this level means they finally get the chance to learn about the universe's true nature. Furthermore, he explains it in his own oddly casual way. It's basically like a video game. If the entire universe were a game, then anyone at 11th level or below would just be an average player. They stumble around cluelessly, playing casually, blindly following the game's mechanics without really understanding them. More advanced players, however, start to grasp the rules, master the systems, and learn how to exploit those mechanics to fight others. But for 13th level and beyond, that's stepping completely outside the player category. That's game master territory. That's seeing the source code, tweaking the back end, and operating without being bound by the rules at all. In some sense, Lu Sheng admits he's already brushing against that level since he already possesses origin power and claims he can see the code. But the problem is, he can't actually read it, let alone rewrite it. Still, this doesn't shake his confidence. He clenches his fist and notes that after comprehending the law of lightning, all his other paths have surged into the 6th realm as well, so he has nothing to complain about. However, the 13th level zombie's memories are absurdly vast, and the sheer amount of knowledge and experience takes time to absorb. He asks himself how terrifying things will get once he fully digests it all. If that day comes, anything below 13th level will probably be nothing more than chopping vegetables for him. Thinking back, he finally understands why Monroe and Qian Yushu focus on drawing rules into their bodies to reinforce their martial physique. This, he realizes, is preparation for 13th level. Without a body strong enough, one wouldn't even survive long enough to wield law-level power before collapsing. In the end, he remarks that the power of laws is truly a double-edged sword. The good news, however, is that with his immortal physique combined with his stellar body, Lu Sheng doesn't need to wait until 12th level to bear the weight and backlash. He notes that this alone counts as a massive trump card. After training concludes, Lu Sheng extends his spiritual perception outward, and in an instant, he comprehends the entire situation of the ship. From the moment he boarded, 7 days have already passed. During that time, no one came by at all. He mutters that someone could have at least delivered a meal or something. Either way, he decides to step outside for some fresh air. He barely makes it a few steps before the rusted metal floor beneath his feet collapses instantly, forcing him to remark that it's honestly impressive this ship still functions at all. With how wrecked it is, the fact that it can still perform warp jumps feels almost miraculous. Suddenly, a hand slaps his shoulder, and someone cheerfully says, "Hey, brother." Lu Sheng turns around and sees a burly man offering him a cigarette, while complaining that after so many days, he's finally run into a living person. The guy tells him he was starting to think everyone on the ship was dead. Lu Sheng refuses the cigarette and asks who he is. Only then does the man remember to introduce himself, saying his name is Saya and that he's from the Boro sector. Lu Sheng introduces himself as well, mentioning he's from the Yamu sector. Saya clearly hasn't heard of it, but he doesn't really care. What he's more interested in, he asks, is which room Lu Sheng is staying in so he can find him later for a game of cards. Lu Sheng simply turns around and remarks that he won't be able to find him. Saya watches him leave and thinks to himself that they're both 11th level. And what was that about? Over the next few days, Lu Sheng sticks to his routine. He trains inside the dream realm daily and occasionally comes out to take a break. Meanwhile, he runs into Saya several more times. This makes Lu Sheng start wondering if the guy just wanders around all day and never stays in his room. Still, our boy never reveals where he lives. He genuinely worries Saya might show up and drag him into a card game. Days pass quickly, and just as Lu Sheng starts to suspect the ship has been completely forgotten, a violent impact jolts him awake. His first thought was that there might have been an accident. After checking with his spiritual senses, however, he realizes the ship has slammed directly into a planet. He briefly assumes the ship finally failed. After all, hauling a pile of scrap metal through space was probably asking too much. As he's about to step out and check, he suddenly crashes into a tall guy who immediately tells him to get lost. Lu Sheng's expression remains calm, which surprises even himself. He reflects that cultivation techniques really do wonders for tempering the mind. If this had happened a year ago, he probably would have twisted that guy's head clean off. He notes with some satisfaction that his state of mind has clearly improved again. Anyway, once outside, he sees that plenty of people have already gathered. He notices that the weakest among them are 11th level, and there are even more 12th level than he expected. It seems his earlier worries about standing out for having a strong aura were completely unnecessary. These people are far louder and more arrogant than he is. One by one, they flare their auras openly, practically begging for attention. Their energy glows in the dark, almost like blazing torches. At the same time, our boy also notices a red-haired young man whose aura is especially eye-catching. Suddenly, Saya walks up behind him and remarks that the guy's name is Sar, a super prodigy from their Boro sector. Saya says he looks incredibly smug, though personally he thinks Sar resembles an angry turkey more than anything else. Lu Sheng doesn't quite know how to respond, and sarcastically notes that he does look very genius. Saya scoffs and says talent is useless. He argues that in the outer space battlefield, prodigies are everywhere, and the only ones who truly matter are those who survive. He remarks that someone so flashy is bound to become the primary target of beasts, and certainly won't last long. Lu Sheng hears the tension and realizes the two must have a history. Saya doesn't hide it. He admits, a little embarrassed, that he was beaten by Sar before. He adds that it was humiliating, the most shameful secret he has, and that he's never told anyone else. He tells Lu Sheng that he's only saying it because he considers him a friend and asks him not to tell anyone. Lu Sheng thinks to himself about when exactly the two of them became friends in the first place. This guy is seriously way too good at getting familiar. Still, he nods anyway. Suddenly, a burly man with a rock-like head pats Saya on the shoulder and points at Sar, asking if that guy is the one who beat him up before. Saya panics instantly, telling him to keep his voice down and asking if he wants everyone to hear it. The stone-headed man scratches the back of his head, looking embarrassed, and says he forgot that this is Saya's biggest secret. He even adds that on this entire ship, he's the only one who knows about it. Lu Sheng glances at the two of them and honestly feels a bit speechless. He doesn't even bother complaining about Saya anymore. Instead, he notes that the stone-headed guy doesn't look very sharp either. In his mind, the two of them are a perfect match. No wonder they became friends. Only then does the stone-headed man notice Lu Sheng and ask Saya if this is his friend. Saya answers by directly throwing an arm around Lu Sheng's shoulders. Lu Sheng doesn't bother refuting it. Suddenly, a sharp voice cuts through the noise, telling everyone to shut up. The crowd falls silent as two figures emerge from the passage. A woman steps forward and announces that she has something to say. The two of them stand on a raised platform, looking down at everyone below. The stone-headed man nearly jumps out of his skin from the sudden shout, but to be fair, everyone does quiet down. The woman then speaks, saying that they have now officially entered the outer space battlefield. Lu Sheng feels a bit surprised. He looks around and thinks to himself that this place is actually the battlefield. Quite a few others seem to share the same thought, their expressions filled with curiosity. This place is clearly not what they imagined. Meanwhile, Lu Sheng spreads his perception outward. Even when it stretches far away, all he senses is emptiness. There are no planets nearby, only a vast, desolate void that gives off a suffocating sense of deathly silence. However, he suddenly notices something else. The cosmic energy here is far denser than where they usually stay. Not to mention the greater flow between heaven and earth feels far more active. He notes that if one were to train here, progress would likely be several times faster. After he mentions this, the others finally notice it too. Many of them become visibly excited, thinking they've come to the right place after all. The woman, however, reflects that while this battlefield does indeed offer many benefits, what they're feeling now is only a tiny fraction of it. She tells them not to celebrate too early. She then reveals that from this moment on, they could be attacked at any time by 12, 13th, and even higher level beasts. If they weren't lucky or simply too weak, she says, they should be prepared to die here. A burst of loud laughter suddenly erupts from the crowd behind them. Sar raises his weapon and remarks that this place suits him perfectly. His confidence spreads quickly, and many people scoff, saying that however many beasts show up, they'll kill just as many. Only Saya suddenly thinks of a crucial question. He asks whether there's no base or safe zone on the battlefield. The stone-headed man follows up, asking if they're really supposed to stay out here forever. Lu Sheng finds their question reasonable. He wonders the same thing. Once they enter the battlefield, are they just supposed to roam freely without any foothold? The woman quickly explains that the 100 major star sectors obviously have bases here. Otherwise, how could they guard this front line and stop enemies from the dark side universe from invading? She further explains that the coordinates within the battlefield are extremely unstable. Relying on warp travel alone makes it impossible to lock onto a base's location. This means they still have a long journey ahead of them. Worse yet, their luck this time is pretty bad. They're much farther from the nearest base than usual. The stone-headed man asks why they can't just take a ship there if it's that far. The woman looks at him with clear disdain and says that if he really wants to, he's free to try, and no one's stopping him. The stone-headed guy clearly doesn't catch the sarcasm, but Lu Sheng explains it for him anyway. He notes that if beasts are a common sight here, then any ship wouldn't make it far before getting shot down. Even a level 12 warship would explode instantly in front of higher-level enemies. He further remarks that ships are simply too big and eye-catching, and more importantly, there's no guarantee advanced tech would even function properly around high-level beasts. After all, he reminds them, these creatures can directly interfere with their technologies. After Lu Sheng lays out his reasoning, the chubby man claps his hands and says Lu Sheng is absolutely right. He explains that since battlefield coordinates are unstable, recruitment ships are usually scrapped anyway, so there's no point wasting a good one. He then announces their next plan. It's actually very simple. They just need to follow the team. At that point, he pauses deliberately, then flashes a rather meaningful smile before adding one more thing. They also need to stay alive. Everyone gulps nervously. Before anyone can even react, the two leaders have already lifted into the air. The woman doesn't forget to turn back and tell them that until they reach the base, they don't qualify to call them officers. Sar let out a snort and said, "There's nothing impressive about that." Quite a few people clearly share the same sentiment, but regardless, everyone still chases after them. The stone-headed guy remarks that it looks like the guy who beat up Saya doesn't get along very well with the people leading the way. Saya just smiles and reveals that it's because Sar once suggested swapping rooms midway through the journey, which led to some beef between them. He then notes that he's actually looking forward to the show, saying he has a feeling Sar is about to get very unlucky. That said, he protests and asks the stone-headed guy to stop adding the one who beat you up label whenever he talks about Sar. The stone-headed guy still feels it's a pity about the ship, but in the end, the three of them follow the group anyway. Only then does Saya tell Lu Sheng that the stone-headed guy's name is Tungsten. He says Tungsten is a decent guy, just a bit slow in the head. Lu Sheng chuckles and jokes that now that he knows his name is Tungsten, he had thought he was called Malphite. Saya, of course, doesn't understand the joke. After a while, our boy realized that about 80% of them are 12th level. These people barely talk, simply following in silence. The remaining 11th level, meanwhile, forms small clusters of 2 or 3, chatting as they go. As for Lu Sheng's side, the two chatterboxes never shut up. Lu Sheng notes that, generally speaking, it's the weaker ones who prefer to stick together. Tungsten, being 12th level himself, yet he's still hanging out with a bunch of 11th level. Then again, our boy realizes he himself is only 11th level too. Anyway, it doesn't take long for him to notice something strange. This place is seriously unusual, completely different from the universe he's used to. If he had to describe it in one word, it would be chaotic. Along the way, all kinds of creatures appear out of thin air. Some areas lose gravity entirely, while others suddenly crank it up to dozens of times normal. It's as if this entire battlefield is riddled with bugs, a region where the code itself has gone haywire. He has to admit that if a powerful beast were to ambush someone here out of nowhere, it would be extremely dangerous. But for Lu Sheng, things are different. Instead of fear, the thought of encountering a level 13 beast actually excites him. After all, he hasn't personally crushed one just yet, and honestly, that sounds kind of fun.